My name's Andy. I run a company called ViFly, and we're an aerial filming and photography business. I personally love top-down photography because you never see it just walking on the streets, and you don't realise how interesting something looks until you are there with a drone looking straight down. I really like that. If you want to sell drone footage, you have to be approved by the CAA. You have to essentially take a flying test, much like a driving test. You have to do a theory and then you have to do a practical test. Then once you've passed those two things, you have to submit an operations manual, which is about a 40 to 50 page document. It basically explains to the CAA how you're going to fly safely. From starting that process to you being signed off, you're approved, can take about 3 to 6 months. ViFly uses DJI Phantom 4 Pros, so we've got 2 of those at the moment. The main difference between a hobbyist and a professional drone operator, you can see, is their footage. They know how to get the best out of their equipment, so there's lots of little tricks that you can do with the software to make sure that the controls are responding how you want them to make the gimbal nice and smooth, because obviously when it comes out of the box it's just standard factory settings, so there is a bit of tweaking that needs to be done to make sure that your movement is as slow and sort of smooth and cinematic as possible. It always needs to be interesting. Try and find an angle that makes the shot not just you flying towards it or going up. If you can combine a gimbal movement with a rotation and an altitude, it'll make the shot look much more interesting than it would do if you're just going up above. Obviously there's certain landscapes that don't need much because the landscapes speak for themselves, but if you want to show off yourself as a really good drone pilot, it's thinking about how you combine all those movements, make them look smooth and put them into one shot. Your standard permission from the CAA says that you can fly up to 400 feet in the air, you can fly 500 meters away from you, and the drone has to be in sight at all times. That's your standard permission. The regulation, I think, is changing. I don't think it's changing quickly enough to keep up with demand. You know, you've essentially got to think about it. You're flying something similar to a food mixer times 4 above people's heads. It's a really dangerous piece of equipment, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can cause some serious injuries with it. My tips to anyone starting out would be get yourself a landing pad. It just helps with takeoff and landings to make sure that dust doesn't get in your propellers or your motors or anything like that. Also a small toolkit, just with really, really small screwdrivers, like ones you buy for a glasses case or something. I'd say if you're doing it in a crowded area, like an industrial site or something like that, I would always say just take along another person if you can, just so they can always have eyes on the drone. You don't realise how many things you have to do at the same time until you actually start flying, because your hands have got to be doing something. You've got to have one eye on your screen to be able to get the best shot, but you've also got to have one eye on where your drone is at all times. With learning drones, there are going to be crashes. There are going to be situations that are out of your control where an accident might happen. Seagulls hate drones, and I've heard stories of them actively dive bombing drones to try and get them out of the sky.